Hello everyone, my name is Simon, and this is going to be an architecture tour of Deus Ex, Human Revolution. Now, we are only going to be looking at architecture in this series of videos, so no gameplay, minimum spoilers, not really going to talk too much about the story, just architecture. So if you're looking for like a walkthrough of the game, you might want to look somewhere else. But if you're interested in architecture, and if you're interested in level design and gaming, then hopefully this will be interesting to you. Now, a little bit about me to start off. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in architecture, and I'm currently studying for a PhD. So, that's my background. I am interested in architecture, and obviously I'm interested in computer games as well. This is mostly my own opinions and analysis, so these videos is just me talking. Now, it's my opinions, I might be right, sometimes I might be wrong about things, or you might disagree, and you know, that's fine. If you have insights, or if you want to have anything you want to discuss, you want to say about the architecture in this game, you know, I welcome that, and I really enjoy talking to people about their ideas about what's going on in games and how the architecture supports the gameplay and the story and narrative and all that, so I enjoy that. So please feel free to comment if you think that, or if you disagree, or if you agree, or if you have anything to add to my thoughts about the architecture in Deus Ex, Human Revolution. So to start off with, here we are at Sarif Industries, as you can see there. I guess this is the first main area of the game. I don't want to spoil too much, but you start off with the tutorial part. So right after that, you start off here. You, Adam Jensen, you work for Sarif Industries. David Sarif there, that's his face, that's your boss. So, yeah. I mean, I guess we'll get... Actually, no, before we get into this particular space, I want to talk about environment design in games in general, and for Deus Ex in particular. Now, Deus Ex has some very good concept art, and if you want to look at those, you can always just Google for it, and you probably find them floating around the internet. And with Deus Ex, it appears that, you know, some areas are very highly detailed and well designed through concept art, and those areas, you know, you can almost pick them out as you walk through them because they're so well, you know, the artwork is so good that you know, the impact is so great that you'll notice them immediately. But then there are other areas in between these places where the concept art is not as well considered, and you'll notice that as well. So you'll notice some very high quality areas and then some lower quality areas, and you know, as we go to those, I'll talk about them, and then maybe you'll see what I mean in it better. So, kind of keep that in mind, concept art, and the impact of that on this game and different places in this game. So, this, I can almost kind of be completely certain that this is, or you know, some sort of artwork would have been created for this. This is the main lobby of this building, and as a starting area, it's a very simple space. We have an open space in the middle, and then some corridors on the side. There's 3 levels to this space. On the bottom floor, there's nothing really on the edges. An elevator there. We'll go up there later on. In the back here, there's some toilets and some vending machines. Staircase going upwards back there. So on the bottom level, nothing too special. And then on the 2nd and 3rd floors on the outside, there are offices. And these offices are again fairly generic. You know, it's a room with a desk and a computer and some shelves and all that. So none of these offices are all that special. But the point about this starting area is that you always come back to the middle, and so it's very easy to navigate and very easy to understand where you are. And for, you know, the starting area of the game, I guess that's useful because, you know, you're just introduced to the game, and so you don't want to get people lost straight away. That's not a good start. But you know, later on, the areas become more complex, and you do get lost if you don't pay attention. Anyway, we can look at the map too. So, as I said, it's just a central oval area, and offices are on this outside. So, fairly simple layout. Tech lab. This is one of the main character's areas. Frank Pritchard, you'll meet him in the game. So this as well would have been drawn up as a piece of concept art, although from what angle I'm not sure. I have seen some of the art, and sometimes they'll be drawn from an angle like behind the wall. So if you imagine you're standing out here and these walls weren't there and you look in, that's how the concept art would have been drawn for some of these rooms. And that sometimes presents a problem because you are looking at the space from a position that the player will never be able to see. And so, that might result in spaces that are not optimal from the player's perspective. But I don't think it's a huge problem in this game, but that's something to consider, whether you're drawing something or whether you're designing something from the perspective of the player or from the person who experiences the space. Anyway, the third level is, again, similar. You're always able to see in the middle, so you always know where you are in relation to, the building. And this is the second office of interest, the security manager office, Adam Jensen. Adam Jensen is you, the player. And you'll notice that this is the only office that's on the inside edge of these corridors. All the other offices are on the outside walls, as you can see here. So every other office on the outside, whereas you are on the inside. So that differentiates your office from everyone else's. And again, as a tutorial space or as the first area of the game, that makes it quite simple to find where you're supposed to be going. And this is obviously one of the places you're supposed to go early on. So it's easy to find. And the spaces are designed this way to help the player ease into the game. So I guess those are the good parts of this first area. Now, some issues. You notice that there are no exterior windows, and beyond the staircases joining the 3 floors, there are no, there's no other doors and there's no other corridors. Whereas, if you look up here, there's supposed to be at least, 1, 2, 3. I don't know if those are meant to be double story, but they're anything from 3 to 6 more stories. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And the tower is actually quite tall, and so apparently this is a huge building. But from here, they don't give you any indication that you can actually go to those spaces. Now, yes, that helps the new player in that you don't have false doors or you don't have false staircases that don't lead to spaces that you can actually travel to. But then when you kind of think about it, or you try to think about it as a building, then the building doesn't make sense because there's no circulation those areas. So it helps gameplay at the expense of being a realistic building. And yeah, no exterior, so you're not tempted to think that you can go outside. Whereas here, back here, cafeteria and helipad. So this is the cafeteria, and here we do have a window. And we have it here because you actually can go out there. And that's the helipad out there. Well, not out there, out this way. Now you'll notice that the cafeteria is not quite as impressive as the first space, the lobby area, I guess you'll call it.
I'm not surprised. You've heard what
Okay, we'll get away from her because she's talking. And I guess this is what I mean when I say, some areas are more designed than others, or more effort has been put into some areas than others. There's nothing particularly impressive about the shape of this thing. Like, why is there an angle there? Pot plants are just kind of put into the corners of the room. Why does the corridor come around like this? I think what this is that it makes you walk around a corner, and I think it helps with the programming and the loading of the graphics into the computer memory and all that. I think it helps with that, but it doesn't really make sense in terms of gameplay and narrative. I think it's more of a technical issue than anything else. I'm not sure about that. But you know, this is not impressive, really. And then you walk out here, and then it's impressive again. I mean, you look down, it's an open area, you have a helipad, it's all well lit. You have these lights swinging around in the background, hangars. Now, so this space would have had the concept art. I'm pretty sure. You have Sarif Industries, all that. And here, you know, what do you want to do? What would you want to do? What you might want to do is look up, because that's the impressive view of that building. And this is definitely part of the concept art there. You know, somebody drew this and then they translated this into the game like this. The issue with that though is that there's nothing encouraging the player to look up. So for most of the game, if you're just playing through and you get picked up by a helicopter at some point, you know, there's nothing drawing the eye upwards. And well, I guess there's the lights and all that, but there's not much to, you know, just to encourage you or even to force you to look up. You know, sometimes when a game includes a special view that they want the player to see, then you know, you need a cue to encourage people to look up. In some games they put in birds where, you know, the birds will fly upwards, and then you might want to look at the birds and, oh, look at that. Or, you know, if you imagine these guys here, they're just hanging around having a smoke. Imagine if they were looking upwards, or if they were standing further back and looking upwards and talking about the building. Then when you look and walk up to them and you see them doing that, then you might also be encouraged to see what they're talking about. So, you know, just tricks like that to motivate the player to do a certain thing or to look at a certain thing. Here, there's nothing in this area to do that, but when you play the game, like, and you arrive by helicopter or you depart by helicopter, it'll play a little cutscene, and in the cutscene, they'll actually have the cutscene from an angle somewhere down here. So if you're coming in, yeah, you see the helicopter coming in over the horizon, and then it'll land, and then as it comes down, I think maybe it's this angle here? Yeah, and as you see it landing, you'll see the building in the background and all that, and that looks really cool. But it only happens in the cutscene, and nothing in this map area actually encourages you to look up. So yeah, so good bits and slightly less optimum bits. So we're coming back this way. I'm not sure if you can tell without getting lost. So that's the lobby, right? And that's the helipad out here. So we came out that way, and then we're coming back at a lower level. This is a dead end. Although I think this is the only false door in this whole area. And that's supposed to lead into the parking level. So, you know, one of the few places where it indicates that this building is bigger than just the game, right? You know, there's a parking area beyond the part of the game, and so, you know, well, we'll talk about that later on, but the idea that, you know, the game or the story, the world of the story is bigger than the world that you're playing in, I think that's important in terms of storytelling. I mean, you don't want to spend the whole thing just running through corridors and rooms and not having any sense of being part of something bigger. I think that's important to storytelling. Anyway, that's most of the areas of this part of the game, Sarif Industries headquarters, I guess you'll call it. Now the last part is up the elevator. And I guess the elevator is important as well. We can just watch it. So outside is Detroit City. This is located in Detroit, Sarif Industries. And it's over. So a nice vista out into the city. Again, you know, telling you, I guess it presents to you where you are. In fact, let's just look at it again. So let's think about what we're seeing here. Nighttime, dark. It's a fairly dense city. There's lights, so you know that it sets the atmosphere, and it tells you what kind of place you're in. And it's nighttime, so it's a dark game. It's a fairly serious game, I guess. I don't know if it's recognizable as Detroit. Maybe people who are familiar with Detroit can tell me just how familiar those buildings are. Anyway, so we're up here, we're supposedly in the penthouse, although if you are counting how many floors we came up, I don't think I mean, if you compare the length of that elevator ride with the height of the building from the helipad, I don't think they quite match up. So either we're not at the top of the building, or you know, there's some adjustment going on with the scale and games. I mean, obviously you don't want to be sitting in an elevator for too long, so for gameplay that's important. Anyway, let's walk into our boss's office. Now again, obviously, concept art. I mean, look at the detailing in the ceiling, look at all these black balls, I guess. I'm not quite sure what purpose they serve. And look at the floor and fireplace painting. So obviously somebody spent a lot of time thinking about this particular room, and so it's, you know, it's very highly detailed. Look at this, the shiny ceiling and all that. So a lot of care has been put into this. And as we go through the other areas in the game, we'll find other offices. Like every main character has an office, it seems, and the office kind of tells you a lot about the character. I mean, what do I mean by that? Here, and it tells you mostly through the furniture as well. So we see here a lot of books and documents. So this guy is a hard worker and a thinker. You know, he's well read and he does a lot of work, clearly. A globe, I'm not sure. Maybe it indicates that he has a, you know, he thinks about global issues. He's into baseball, so he's an all-American kind of guy. Detroit's 2027 Detroit season. I mean, that tells you the date as well. It tells you you're in Detroit and tells you that this guy is, you know, into sports. And here we have his desk, and you notice that the desk is on an angle. You know, the room is square and all the tiles are square, but his desk is on an angle, so maybe he doesn't quite play by the rules. You know, he doesn't fit in. He's a bit of a maverick, maybe. And then here he travels a lot. You see his briefcase is ready, baseballs and baseball bats. I don't know what that sculpture is. Out there we have Detroit again. He's got a nice view. Ah, actually no, we can't see it. This is the other tower of Sarif Industries, so he's not at the top of the building. I'm not entirely sure what that means. You know, why does the boss not have his penthouse office and all that? But anyway, so we're actually not at the top. Yes, a fireplace, some nice paintings. So, you know, he's a little bit old-fashioned, but also a hard worker, a bit of a maverick. He's into sports. So, you know, these all contribute towards telling the story about what kind of character he is. And I guess the fancy ceiling goes well with the fireplace and all that, so this is kind of old school. I don't know how well you know your architecture, but this kind of pattern is maybe Renaissance style. And we'll see more kind of Renaissance references as well, Italian or kind of European architectural references. And you know, there's the pattern on this rug here. So he's a bit of a little bit old-fashioned, a little bit of a maverick, and a hard worker. I guess it's the story that we're trying to tell about him. And that is pretty much Sarif Industries. I mean, the first area is, yeah, fairly simple, just an oval space mostly, and then a few corridors leading to a helipad, and then the boss's office. So only 3 main areas, and the link between them is quite simple. Alright, I guess I will end this part here. Yep, I've said everything that's important. Next part we will go out these doors and step into Detroit. So we've seen Detroit through the windows, and behind these doors is that. So next time we walk outside and start exploring the city. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoy the series.